Hello again, friends, and welcome to another installment of Doc G's Wine and Spirits Review. So let's recap a little bit. The last time I saw you, we were doing part one of our Thanksgiving trilogy on what would be good wines to pair with Thanksgiving. If you remember, in our last segment, we talked about a lot of great white wines that would complement the great meal you're going to have for Thanksgiving. This week, we're going to shift our focus to reds and rosés. So cheers and welcome to part two of Doc G's Thanksgiving wine and food pairing trilogy. So just to recap from last week, we talked about how we wanted to pair certain wines with the vast array of food possibilities that you could have for Thanksgiving. We did that. I want to go back over that. So this week we're going to shift to looking at how reds can also pair well with your Thanksgiving Day dinner, which the permutations are countless. So I'm going to try to hone down a little bit for you how to make it simple for you rather than turning it into this expose on the potential wine pairings that you could have with Thanksgiving along with red wines. Because really, if you keep it simple, it will really be a good day of food and wine pairing for you as far as red wines go. So, if you remember last week, we talked about certain characteristics of white wines that would pair well with Thanksgiving Day food. I want to do the same thing for you today with red wines. So what you want to do, instead of trying to narrow it down to, a certain, winery and certain grape, is to give you the traits of red wines that I think will pair well and fare well for you on Thanksgiving Day. So what are we looking for in a red wine that would be very helpful, and I don't even want to say helpful, would be very nice for your palate and as a great accompaniment to the food? Well, red wines can run the gamut from easygoing to big, bad, and bold. I'm going to take you on the continuum today of staying away from the big, the bad, and the bold, because those can overwhelm some of the earthy, mild foods that tend to accompany the Thanksgiving Day dinner. It's not a meal that's real heavy in spice, although there are a lot of subtle spices. It's not something that requires a lot of complexity in the wine. So you want to keep it as simple as possible for Thanksgiving Day, red or white, and rosé as well. So what are you looking for in a red wine? I would give you a couple characteristics that I think, no matter what wine you go out and buy, and I'm going to give you some samples of red wines, grapes that I think are good for you. But again, I'm sure I'm going to miss a few. But again, just like with the whites, I know I missed quite a few. But if I just go on and on and on and on, you're going to kind of miss the point. So I don't want to do that to you. Let's try to keep it simple. So you want to look for acid. You want to look for a red wine that's got a good acid base. You want to look for something, number two, you want to look for something that's mildly tannic. You don't want it so flabby that it doesn't do anything for you. You want just enough tannin to let you know that it's there. And finally, you want to look for, I think, some earthiness that you'll find in a lot of red wines. A lot of easygoing red wines do tend to have a little bit of earthiness to them, but not too much. So those are the three characteristics. Let's review that again. Acid, mild tannin, and earthiness. Now you say, well, what red wines are those? We'll get to that in a minute. I do want to give you a little bit of a caution of things that I think you should avoid with the Thanksgiving Day dinner. And I would avoid anything that's real tannic. There are certain red wines that are just like young Cabernet Sauvignon. A grape called Tannat from Uruguay and some comes from France. They rip your mouth. You don't want that on Thanksgiving. Trust me. Those are good when you're going to have a lamb chop, when you're going to have a big steak. But we're talking turkey, maybe ham. For some of you who do fish, you're going to stay. When am I going to stay from red wines? I know Thanksgiving can be kind of varied, but it's mostly either a turkey, a ham, and some people might throw in. It just depends on your family history and your family traits and your family customs. But it's mostly turkey and ham, let's face it. So you want to stay away from big, bad red wines on Thanksgiving Day. That would be my only. Stay away from the oak. Stay away from the high ABV, as I said last week. Remember, this is a long day. The less alcohol you put in your body, the longer you can stay awake to enjoy the good food that you are about to have throughout the day. So that's what you'll look for in a red. So having said that, what are reds that would meet those characteristics? Well, right here in this glass, we're going to start out with a Pinot Noir. This Pinot Noir happens to be one of my favorites from the Finger Lakes. The Pinot Noir style from the Finger Lakes is one of my favorite. Burgundy makes great Pinots. California makes great Pinots. Me, Doc G, I love good Pinot Noir from the Finger Lakes. Doesn't matter though, you can get what you want. Just find yourself a nice Pinot Noir. I'll tell you what, Pinot Noir I could stop the conversation here, but I want to try to give you some variety. You guys all know how much I love Pinot. I've shared it with you, but we're going to start with that. And why does Pinot Noir work? Well, Pinot Noir, because of its cherry and strawberry and dark fruit and earthiness, accents well the cranberries that seems to permeate throughout the Thanksgiving meal. And secondary to that, for the protein part of the meal, Pinot Noir pairs fantastically with either the white meat or the dark meat of the turkey. So you cannot go wrong with a Pinot Noir like this one. One that is more Pinot than it is. Some Pinots from California might have a little bit of some other grape in them. You want to tend to get a cool climate Pinot Noir that is 90% Pinot Noir or more, if not 100%, like this one. Not much of a nose, a little bit of earth. You get a little bit, it's almost like dirt, but it's a good dirt. I just follow that up with a nice drumstick turkey leg. Fantastic. So Pinot Noir would be my first go-to. My wife and I just had a homemade chicken soup the other night, and Pinot Noir goes fantastically with any kind of poultry. So I'm going to recommend to you that if you can get any wine on your table that's a red, and you tend toward reds for Thanksgiving, you will not go wrong with a Pinot Noir. But you can go above and beyond that. You can also do yourself a California, and I'm going to say a California Zinfandel. This is one from my favorite winery in California, or my favorite red winery in California, Pedroncelli. That's a Sonoma County Zin. You can do a Napa Valley Zin. You can do a Paso Robles Zin. Just get yourself a deep, dark Zin from California, because the Zinfandel tends to amplify the cloves and the allspice and many of the spices that go into a lot of what you'll have on Thanksgiving Day. And it adds a little smokiness. And finally, it actually pairs as well with the dark and the white meat of the turkey as does the Pinot Noir. It just brings a totally different fruit profile. Pinot Noirs tend to be a little bit more lean. Zinfandels tend to be a little bit more in your face, and they're in a good way. Big, dark plum and cherry fruit. Can't go wrong with a nice turkey leg, or with a nice cut of the turkey breast with some gravy sprinkled over it. Getting hungry for Thanksgiving as we speak. The next wine that I would recommend for you is a wine called Beaujolais. And Beaujolais, this one happens to be one from the Morgon region, the AOC. I actually visited this when we went to France 2 years ago. And Beaujolais is a Burgundian grape. It is the other Pinot Noir. The grape is called Gamay. And we'll get in. I'll do a special just on Beaujolais because I love it so much. and you hear about the Beaujolais Nouveau that gets released for Thanksgiving, you can do that, but I can tell you this, you won't go wrong, but the better Beaujolais is to find what is called a Beaujolais Cru, which means it is a Beaujolais that is not released early. This one, as a matter of fact, is a 2019. The Beaujolais Nouveau, they were just released. They're very fresh. They're very fruity. It's almost, you close your eyes, you might be drinking a white wine. But get yourself a good Beaujolais, and you will not go wrong, because Beaujolais probably pairs with everything very well, except maybe the dark meat of the turkey, but guess what? You can get away with it too. But it goes with the salads. It goes with the stuffing. It goes with the squash that you might have. It goes with the yams that you might have. It goes with the mashed potatoes it goes with everything. It is such a light tannin, easy drinking red wine. I'll tell you what, beyond Thanksgiving, and I promise I'll come back and we'll do a spot just on Beaujolais wine, the Gamay grape, Gamay. Fantastic. It's just fantastic grape. And it's one that I think if you go out, you'll find some. No matter where you shop, you'll find a Beaujolais. It may not be a Beaujolais Nouveau. It could be a Beaujolais Village. It could be a Beaujolais Cru, CRU, which means it's from a certain area. They're all good. The Gamay grape, done properly, is fantastic. And the place where the Gamay grape seems to do the best is in Burgundy, in the Beaujolais region in France. Trust me, I've been there, and the wines are fantastic. So, there's one more red that I would also highly recommend. Let me get this one out of the way. And that would be, and this one goes vaults to a different level. This one is called a GSM. And I pulled one out of my collection. This is a Côte du Rhône, meaning from the Rhone Valley, red wine from France. And a Côte du Rhône means it is a blend of various parts of Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. Now these wines, they kick it up a little bit of a notch, because Grenache is a big grape. Syrah is not tiny, and nor is Mourvèdre. You put the three together, if you have a smoked turkey, this would do really well with that. Dark meat turkey would do really well with that. Pairs well with the stuffing, with roasted squash. There's an earthy and meaty quality to the wine that is not as present and prevalent in the others that I have shared with you. So the bottom line is, with these four wines, any one of these four reds, you just can't miss on Thanksgiving Day as far as your red wines are concerned. And as I told you last week, I would have the reds and the whites readily available. And we're going to move to the rosés now. Throw them all out there. It's a long day. It's a party. Have some wine. So let's move on then from the reds. We got the reds out of the way for now. And we're going to move on now. Let me make friends, or make room for my rosé friends. And you guys all know, I mean, I go gaga over rosé wine. I have, if you could see back here in my little wine cellar, I got a ton of rosé. I drink rosé all year round. That stuff about a summer sipper, well, that's good. It's a winter sipper too. It just depends on how you want to pair it. So the rosés that I would recommend for you, I mean, again, I could get really crazy here. I'm trying to keep it simple for you. So that's what I'm going to do. So the traits that you want to look for in rosés, please, if you have a rosé, make it a dry one. Don't get a white zin. Not for Thanksgiving, please. If you do, don't tell me. You can have it another time. But you want to get a rosé that's dry. You want to get a rosé that's fruity, and meaning it's got that subtle strawberry or raspberry or a little bit of a citrus, depending on the region where the rosé originates. And above all, you want to make sure that your rosé, and they most normally do, will be very bright and acidic. And that's what's important for your Thanksgiving meal. Acid goes well with Thanksgiving dinners. So I would say to you that the styles that I would tend toward, and I have two of them here. I don't happen to have one, so I can't show you one. I drank them all this summer. But I would first of all say the Provence style rosé. And this is one that I buy If you notice the O, it's kind of our house wine, although it's not Otto, it's Olema. So, and it is a blend of the typical Provence style wines. It might have a little bit of Grenache, a little bit of Syrah, a little bit of Sanso, and it makes for a very crisp, dry, this would pair with everything that you're going to have on Thanksgiving Day. Everything. It might get a little bit boring, but I can tell you, you will not be disappointed. So that's why I recommend you vary it up. Have a little white, a little red, a little rosé. You just can't swing and miss. Another style that I would highly recommend is that you do, let me get this out of the way, a Pinot Noir rosé. You heard me gush over Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir rosé is just like Pinot Noir, just a little less meaty, a little less earthy, but more acidic, but retaining the great fruit flavors that you find on a Pinot Noir. Even has a little bit of floral note on the nose when you put a Pinot Noir rosé in the glass. This one is from one of my favorite wineries in the Finger Lakes, Heart and Hands. This is called the Ancre. That's an Irish name. I don't exactly remember what it means. It doesn't matter. The wine is fantastic. So, and I would also, beyond that, recommend that you explore either a Cab Franc rosé, which I don't have any because of the herbal and pepper notes that they come off into the Cab Franc rosé just like they do in the red. And I would also say if you can get yourself a Zinfandel rosé, they're not always easy to find. But if you can get a Zinfandel rosé, they tend to run a little bit darker, almost like a Rosato style, but they are wonderful. They almost drink like a red. They're bold. They hold up to almost everything that you're going to have on the dinner plate, on the dinner table, when you do your Thanksgiving dinner. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background on what you can do with reds and rosés for Thanksgiving, as we are within 2 weeks of the holiday as I speak. And I just want to reiterate that as you start to think about your dinner, give some thought to the wine, give some thought to the food pairings that you're going to have with the advice that I've given you. And just remember, Thanksgiving Day is about kicking back, relaxing, enjoying time with friends and family. Do not fuss over the wine. And I hope that the advice that I'm sharing with you gives you a chance to begin your search, if you don't already have it, for the wines that might make your Thanksgiving Day just a little bit better. That would be my hope for you. So for the next segment, I'm going to promise I'll do you one before we get to the actual celebration of Thanksgiving at the end of the month. I want to have a segment where we do the different cocktails and spirits, and maybe throw in a little bit of dessert kind of liqueurs and things that might pair well for you on Thanksgiving Day. So look for that segment. Start doing your shopping, and until then, go find yourself some red wines, some rosé wines. And until we talk again, stay safe and cheers.